Tony Hody Training and Consulting presents the Crash Course Podcast. Sponsored by Engage, Builder Prime, and Hiring Strategies. Your weekly destination for coaching, inspiration, and new skills to help you maximize your income and success in the home improvement sales industry. Here are your hosts, sales and training experts, Phil Wiley and TJ Parsons.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Crash Course. My name is TJ Parsons. I'm joined by Phil Wiley, and today we are talking about becoming a better closer. And that starts with understanding what closing actually is, because there are some misconceptions about it. And I'm going to let Phil speak on that a little bit. Phil?
Well, I think the one big conception that a lot of people have is when you hear the word closer or salesman, you automatically get a negative feeling or a negative thought. There's a stigma to sometimes to having the term salesman or closer or close. And a lot of it is just because they feel that the sales rep's too aggressive. They put too much pressure on me. We hear that a lot of times from homeowners when they tell us about their experience with our company. They said, your salesman was great. He showed up on time. He looked professional. She acted professional. We had a lot of fun together. We loved your company. We loved your product. But as soon as we said, well, you know what, we need to think about it, or we're just not going to pull the trigger today, it was like the person changed. They got real aggressive. Their mood changed. They got a little uncomfortable. And we've heard that a lot in the past. And I think that's part of the reason that salesmen and closers have such a bad reputation, or people question when you say, what do you do for a living? I'm in sales. And a lot of times it's just from people having bad experiences with salespeople.
I think all those reasons add up to the sales rep's natural inclination being to shy away from wanting to close or being nervous about closing because they don't want to be that person. They don't want that stigma attached with pushing a customer too hard and putting their customer in a situation where they're uncomfortable, where they might file a BBB complaint or a bad review online. And it makes them feel like if they say no, I should be polite and walk away. And I respect that. I understand where people are coming from when they feel that. But at the end of the day, closing is not about pushing. It's not about being aggressive. Those people that did the wrong thing for that customer, they did things the wrong way. What closing is about is finding a respectful way to continue the conversation. We read a quote, it's demonstrating your commitment and professionalism through respectful persistence. That's really what closing is all about. It's how can we dig deeper into the customer's concerns? Because oftentimes, no just means they don't have enough information. That's really what it is. And just because they say no, it doesn't mean that that's final either, right? How many times have we said no to our kids just to turn around 5 minutes later and say, fine, right? It's a natural reaction that people can have because we are natural procrastinators at heart. So I think the main question is, why do sales reps hear that even something that resembles an objection or just a slight deterrent? Why do they hear that and then automatically give up?
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you just said real quick, because you nailed it when you talked about the fear of a bad review or a complaint to the Better Business Bureau. That is a real concern, and home improvement companies need to make sure that we train our sales reps properly so that doesn't happen. But at the same time, we can't completely take away their abilities to be persuasive, to at times get a little aggressive, at times to get a little pushy, because sometimes that's all it takes is just a little push, a little shove, a little going back and saying, remember, you told me this and you told me that. And I think when people talk about pressure and stress and that all that taking place in a close, you hit it right on the head, TJ. It's not supposed to be that way. We create that for several different reasons, which we'll talk about, but that's not natural. That's something that gets created, and it can come from different ways. But I think that sales reps shy away from closing for a lot of different reasons. And I think one of the big reasons, which you'll talk about, is mindset.
For sure. I think it starts with sales reps don't feel like they've earned the right to push the conversation further. Whether that's they didn't do a good enough job on the presentation, or they don't feel like they have buy-in from the customer, that maybe they just didn't click on a personal level. They don't feel like the rapport is there. There's something missing to where they don't feel like they've earned the right to continue that conversation.
We've all been on those leads before where we're either the one giving the presentation or we're on a ride along and we're watching it take place. But you can just tell we're not closing this deal. They're not into me. I'm not having fun. They're not having fun. My tie downs are like, yep and sure. And you're just not in harmony with the homeowner. And you can just tell. And when we get to the end, we lay down price. We ask for the order. They say no. Then it's like, how fast can I get cleaned up and get out of here? And there's really not much more of an attempt to close. And hopefully that doesn't happen to you too often. But you have to understand, not every single customer is going to click with you. TJ, and there's customers that are going to love TJ and they're going to hate me. There's going to be customers that absolutely love me and they're not going to like TJ. There's just different people have different opinions and feelings, and it's okay. But we need to understand that when we're in these closing situations, the greats have said things like the close is the natural conclusion, or it's the result of a masterful presentation. If you've done your job properly, you have earned the right to close because it's the next step. That's why when we work with home improvement companies and we help them develop a sales methodology, we don't say, here's the sales methodology. Now let us go create you a closing methodology. No, the close is just one of the steps leading from knocking on the front door and introducing yourself to shaking their hand and thanking them for trusting you with their business as you walk out the door. And it's not a whole different methodology. It's a step in the process. It's the next natural step after we love your company, we love you, we love your product. Now let's see if we love your price and in some cases love your payment.
I think the second major reason is people in general, especially sales reps, do have a fear of rejection. And you get that initial no, and you don't really necessarily want to reinforce it and hear no again. So you just take your loss and you bow out.
That is a true, just like people have a fear of heights, a fear of being buried alive, a fear of spiders, there's a fear of rejection. People are afraid of being rejected. And that's not a good phobia to have if you're a sales rep, is having a no phobia or whatever it is, whatever it's called. But you have to always understand, and it's one of my favorite things to say in a close is, you know what, John and Mary, when you say no, you're not saying no to me. You're saying no to the two most important people in the world, and that's you. Just if you were to say yes and say, let's move ahead and get this project started, you're not saying yes to me. You're saying yes to the most important people in the world. So we need to get past the fact that we are afraid of being rejected, because you're not being rejected. Your job is to go out again and deliver a world-class presentation. The homeowner will decide whether they want to buy or not. And if they say no, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the whole concept of doing a home improvement and making that decision today.
And really, if you think about it, your likelihood of being rejected is much higher if you don't attempt to continue the conversation, right? I mean, close rates are significantly lower for people that just tap out as soon as they get any sort of pushback at all, right? So your rejection is a lot more frequent when you don't try.
Right. And going back to this whole mindset concept, closing is all about digging deeper. Closing is about finding out what the customer really means. We've all been taught that when we first ask for the order, usually the first thing that comes out of the customer's mouth is some type of smoke or a stall. They're not ready to move forward, and at the same time, they're not really ready to talk to you about what the real reasons are, Because keep in mind, the customer knows if I tell TJ the real reason I'm not buying today, I'm going to give him the opportunity to try to convince me differently. So if I keep it, because they think that's a blanket statement, we need to think about it. They think that covers everything. And if I say we need to think about it, the salesman's not going to know where to go. When in fact, we should have a million closes on how to handle procrastination. But all closing is we have to understand that it is human nature. I forget the stat that I read the other day. It was like, I want to say it was like 41% of childbirths are late. People are born procrastinating. Their very first act is procrastinating, right? They showed up late. So people are natural born procrastinators. We talk about it all the time. Your check engine light comes on. You don't pull off the road and go to your GPS for the nearest mechanic. You get an ache in your foot. You don't call the doctor and say, hey, my foot's hurting. When can you see me? We wait and procrastinate and let things get worse and worse. So again, when we talk about rejection and we talk about taking it personal, when a customer tells you they want to think about it, that's got to be like water going off the duck's butt. You hear it, you say, no problem. Now let me go find out why you're procrastinating, because most of the time it means something.
And to piggyback on that, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about that, just the phrase, we want to think about it, right? The problem for a sales rep is that you really get no information from that, right? If you were looking at your odds of closing a sale on a scale of 0 to 100, and then your customer says, I want to think about it, you don't know, are they at 2% and they're so far away from you that there's no chance they're buying today? Or are they at 99%? They're an inch away from pulling the trigger. You don't know, but their response to you is going to be the same because they're trying to be polite. If they're frustrated and they're ready to go, most people are still going to take the polite path and just say, thanks, we still need time to think about it. Or right, if they're right there, they don't have enough to push them over the edge, they're going to be genuine. We need some time to think about it, right? So that's what's so hard as a sales rep, is that you don't know where you are on that scale. And that's why closing is important, because you need to be able to siphon that down and figure out, am I at 5 or am I at 99?
Right. And you've always got people that change how they feel about you the longer they spend time with you. So you get to somebody's house, they see you walking up their driveway. They sent a salesperson here from Rhino Home Remodeling. They're here to talk to us about our bathroom. They don't care about you. They don't want to get to know you. They just want you to show them what you can do, give them a price, and be on your way. An hour and a half later, I like this guy. I like this girl. They want to hang out with you. Or if they're older, maybe they want you to date their kids. Or, man, they start to look at you like a nice grandchild, or a nice son, or a nice daughter, or a friend they hang out with or go get a beer with. They go through a quick relationship change. It's funny, the other day, somebody was talking about how relationships are formed on appointments, and how you can go from being not really knowing each other to friends in such a short period of time. And somebody started talking about all these new reality TV shows where all these men or all these women show up at a mansion, and within just 2 to 3 weeks, they're crying their eyeballs out because they're in so much love with somebody that they've spent 30 minutes with over a 3-week period. And now they got this new one on TV where you get engaged to get married before you even see each other. So many crazy different TV shows out there. And it's because as human beings, we have the ability to create relationships quickly now. As time's gone by, everything is sped up, the microwave era. How fast can we get information? How fast can we get things done? We do the same thing in our personal lives. We decide very quickly, I'm not going to like this person. And in that 90-minute period that you're sitting there at their kitchen table, now they like you. They want to be your friend. So now when you ask them for their order, they might be a little hesitant to share things with you. Like, we can't afford the payment. We don't have the money to put down. I don't think we'll get approved for financing. Things aren't stable at work. Things aren't stable in our personal relationship. I don't even know if we're still going to be married by the time you come out to put the windows in. So the natural and easy thing to say is just to look at you and say, you know what, TJ, we just want to think about it. I think I joke around about this all the time, but I think the only sin that the Pope is allowed to commit without getting in trouble with God is to lie to a salesperson. I think it's a pass. You lied to that guy, but it was a salesman, so you're okay. You told him you wanted to think about it, and you're not going to think about it, but you just didn't want to tell him the truth. So a lot of times we just need to dig a little deeper. What are you really saying? What do you really mean? And eventually you'll get there if you do it right, if you do it professionally, and you do it the way you're trained how to do it.
And that just all cycles back to just the fear. If it's not a fear of rejection, it's a fear of, I don't want to upset this person. Like you said, I've built this great rapport. Everything's gone really well. What I don't want to do is change their opinion of me, because again, a lot of these sales reps think that as long as I leave a good impression, as long as they're happy with me, it doesn't matter if I close it now. If I leave and everything's good, there's still a chance they could call me back, which that is fair. We do want to leave on a good impression, but there's plenty of space between leaving a price, getting a no, and just walking out and pushing the customer to where they're unhappy with you. There's a huge gap between those two things.
Well, we've heard for years that the average salesperson actually asks the homeowner to buy 0 to 1 time. That's common. And there's some really nice things that are out and about now that you can actually use in the house, and it's like being on a ride along and not being there, and a lot of cool tools out there now. But one of them gives you a lot of data, and they're starting to build reports. And one of the reports that we looked at today showed that the top performers, the top closers in the home improvement industry, typically will ask the customer to buy 4 to 5 times before the customer says yes. Now, that's not, John and Mary, I just need you to initial here and we'll get the project started. And they go, well, we want to think about it. Well, John and Mary, I just need you to initial here and here and we'll get the project started. Oh, we just want to think about it. That means there has to be something in between, which means we have to learn how to handle the objections, how to move them from we want to think about it to what it really is. And we read another interesting stat today, because TJ and I have always been big fans of closing needs to be scripted just like a sales presentation. And you have to follow a methodology. And I read a number today that just, it put a huge smile on my heart. It said that the people that follow a methodology or a script 0 to 10% of the time are generally very poor closers. But people that follow a script 90 to 100% of the time close between 40 and 50% of their appointments. And it's so true, because you got to come across in the same demeanor and the same personality in the close that you did during the presentation, or that's when you start to get the comments. They became a different person. They got mad. You could tell they were stressed out. They must really need a sale. They got desperate. And that's because we don't know what to say. We're not prepared. And this message goes out to business owners and sales managers that might be watching today. And that is, all of you do a good job or a great job of hiring and bringing salespeople in for initial training, getting them up and running so that they're ready to go run a lead. But not what happens when Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, or something like that. But we give a sales rep all the training and everything they need to get into a house, to get into a demo, to show their product, and then ask for the order. And then the customer says, we want to get other estimates. And the salesman just starts bleeding from the mouth because they got punched and they don't know what to do. And sales managers, sales owners, that's the reason why you reach out to people like TJ and I, and you hire us and you bring us into your organization so that we can pick it up after they graduate, and we can make sure they're prepared on how to handle objections, how to close objections, how to get past procrastination. We want to think about it and move it to something that can be closed. But TJ's got an awesome football analogy that we like to talk about when we talk about the reason that we have to prepare sales reps on what to do. TJ, won't you talk about your analogy you like to use?
And sorry again for the 100th football analogy I've made, but it's just like if you're a quarterback, right? If you teach a quarterback how to run a play, you can teach him where the wide receivers are going to be, what the progression is going to look like, how to react to the defense they see. But what happens, what a lot of sales managers are not doing for their team is teaching them what to do when the play breaks down. Because if you snap the ball and there's no pressure, you can go through your progressions and that's fine. But if you snap the ball, but then you've got the right end in your lap within half a second because he beat the right tackle, well, now all bets are off. Now we have to completely adjust our game plan. And that's kind of what closing is you can do everything right, but then when something goes wrong, you got to be prepared for that. And going back to that study that you mentioned, we've known it. We've seen the results. We know for a fact that people that are on the system are going to be more successful than people who are off the system. We've always known that. But to have it in actual data where I believe it was 38,000 appointments were analyzed, and they found that the people that did not have a structured sales process, their close rate on average was around 32%. And the people that were 90 to 100% on script, their close rate was 49%. So just a massive improvement in close rate and in income, everything. But it's everything we've known now solidified in an actual report. So I was happy to see that.
I know I've told the story before, but I'll never forget when I was working at the home improvement company TJ and I came from, and the owner of the company said, "Hey, I want you to start running some rehash appointments for us. And I'm going to take you out on a couple rehash with me, show you the ropes." And he took me out on an appointment with him. And I'll never forget, he got to the close and the sales rep said, or the customer said something. I started doing exactly the same thing in the house that we were trained to do as salespeople. And I don't know why that floored me so much, but I was in awe that here's the owner of the company using the same closes that I was taught, saying the same things that I was taught. And it just, from that day on, I realized the importance of following a system and it'll work. McDonald's perfected that. I don't know how many of you have ever watched that movie on Netflix about, or Amazon, wherever it's at, about how McDonald's got started and how Michael Keaton plays the guy who ends up buying McDonald's. But he shows up and he's just floored at how he got a hamburger, an order of fries, and a soft drink in 30 seconds. And when he went into the kitchen and the guy was walking him around and he showed him how there's a system for everything, when to drop the fries, when to lift the fries, how many shakes of salt, how many squeezes of ketchup, how many squeezes of mustard, how many pickles, how long is the hamburger to be turned or on one side before it gets turned. And the whole process was a system. And he gets in this long line and the lady's like, "Oh, don't worry, the line goes fast." And sure enough, he went from being in the back of the line to being in the window in just a matter of a couple minutes. And there is a system to be followed for everything that we do. And for years, TJ and I worked with salespeople, and for years, you get sales reps that feel like you're holding them back, or you don't trust them, or that they're not good enough to do something the way they want to do it, that we try to force people to follow a system. And there's other reasons why, but the main reason is because it's proven. It works. TJ and I worked with some of the most phenomenal sales reps in our industry, people that just got the job done, and they all follow the system. And
I think,
right?
100%. I also think that sometimes those reps in those positions, I think they have a fear of failure, and they're scared that if they attempt to learn this and they don't do it properly, that either we as management are going to look at them and be disappointed in them, or they're numbers are going to suffer. So they'd rather have no restraints whatsoever and just wing it than attempt to do something and do it poorly.
And I want to go back real quick before we go forward, because I don't want to forget this. Because one of the things that we wanted to get across in this, because this is teeing up our webinar coming up in the future on closing the sale, and we want to lay the foundation a little bit of what it's like and how to be prepared. But if somebody was to call me up on the phone and say, why don't salespeople close more deals? And it was just a very blanket question like that. It all starts with hiring the right person. And we're not going to jump into a lot of this today, but you've got, again, we talked about recruiting a couple times. You've got to invest the right amount of time into recruiting. You got to know who you're looking for. You got to hire those people. You have to have a system that works, a system that develops salespeople easily and at the same time is powerful in the house. You have to have the right tools. You have to have the right things to be effective in a sales presentation. And if you do all of these things, then it makes closing easier. But it's multiple things: hiring the right person, having the right system, having the right people train them, making sure they're trained properly, making sure you got the right culture at your office, giving that salesperson the support that they need when they get out of training, and the follow-up training. TJ, that was your specialty at the company we came from. That was your, you did a lot of different things, but your key function that had the biggest impact on the team is weeks 3 through 10. What happens next? And your ability to bring these guys in every morning for 7 weeks and go back over all the parts and pieces of the presentation and teach them new closes and talk about their lead from the day before. And what did we do right? What could we have done differently? How could we have closed that? It's so critical. And that's where a lot of companies get themselves in trouble. If they don't have the right amount of time allotted to recruiting, that also means they're not going to have the right amount of time allotted to training. And by the time you get a class graduated and out in the field, you're trying to find another class instead of we're good now. Now let's go work on these guys and take them to the next level. So again, give us a call and talk to us about how we can help you grow your business. I say all the time, it's the greatest ROI you're ever going to find in the home improvement industry is TJ and myself, because we are going to, whatever amount of money something costs to be trained or developed, more than pay for itself, and just higher efficiencies, less turnover, less hiring, salespeople getting to the next level. Your profits are going to go up. Your net rates are going to go up. So it's all about training and developing people.
Absolutely. And part of that training is training them on what to say when they get to the close. Because I think, again, that's half the fear for these sales reps is that they get to that first no and they have no idea where to go from there other than being like, well, why? And that's obviously not the appropriate way. So we have to be able to be prepared and trained and have a process, as we mentioned before, a repeatable process for what happens when we get that first no, because we know it's going back to that football reference, that football analogy. If you know that the defense you're playing loves to blitz and you get up to the line of scrimmage and you see a blitz coming, you got to know how to audible to handle it. Otherwise, you're going to get sacked. So in this analogy, we got to know how to pivot. We have to be prepared for that blitz so that we can not get sacked and get the deal.
That's so true. And we talked a little bit about maybe we'd leave you with a couple closes today to help prepare you for how to move some of these objections. And one of the closes that I thought about was, the homeowner tells you they want to think about it, is, and this is true for me, so you might want to change the verbiage to something you heard, but I had a sales manager who all the time used to remind me that people buy on emotion and they justify with logic. So I turned that quote into a close. And TJ, if you'll role play with me for a second, it's simply, you know what, Mr. Parsons, I understand. And again, I appreciate why you feel that way. A sales manager that I worked for used to say this quote all the time. He used to say, people buy on emotion and they justify with logic. That makes sense, doesn't it, TJ? A lot of times in life, we make big decisions and little decisions, but we make those decisions purely on emotion, right? How do we feel at that moment? And then we come back later and we use logic to try to justify the decision that we made. So today we're talking to you about your bathroom. TJ, tell me a couple reasons why it would make sense for you to go ahead and move forward today and get your bathroom project on the schedule.
Well, I know it's something that we need to get done. We're going to do it eventually. We do have a little bit of mold and mildew that we'd like to get out of there. We've got company coming in for the holidays. It'd be nice to have it done then, and it would just be nice to have.
Any other reasons why it makes sense?
Well, and then the promotion that you guys are offering is really great too, so it'd save us a lot of money.
And give me a reason why it would make sense to hold off on this and not get started with the project right now.
Really, it would just be giving us some time to think it over. It is a lot of money. It's a lot more than we thought it was going to be before you got here. So just having some time to discuss it to make sure that it's affordable and what we want to do with that amount of money.
Anything else?
No, I think that'd be it.
Well, if you take a look here at everything that you just went over with me, you gave me 7 reasons why it makes sense, why it would be a good decision to move forward with the project today. So you gave me 7 pros. You gave me 2 reasons why it would make sense to wait. So from a logical standpoint, if you've got 7 reasons why it makes sense to do it and only 2 reasons why it makes sense to wait, sounds like moving forward with the project would be the logical decision. Wouldn't you agree? Well, welcome to Rhino Home Remodeling. We're going to get the project started for you, and we appreciate you trusting us with your business. Now, it would be great if it works that way all the time. It doesn't. But here's the key. If TJ was to say, no, we still want some time to think about it, all I've got to do is go to the right side of my page and take the 2 cons. And he said the 2 cons were, we want to make sure that we can afford it. And it's a lot of money. We want to make sure that we want to spend that much money at this time. So with those 2 things, it's a lot of money and it's a payment. Now we know what area to go attack, and we know what probably is the real reason that's holding them back is not we want to think about it. It is we need to make sure that we can afford the payment, or we want to make sure that we have enough money set aside to put toward this project. So,
and that's the key to
great
closing.
close to use.
And that's what closing is all about, is just figuring out what is the actual objection. Not I want to think about it because we don't know what that means. We don't know where they are on that scale. We have to figure out what the real issue is. And if it's something that we can overcome, great. And there's another value here, and that's not just getting more deals, but when you close and you can isolate what the real objection is, the other value that you get is on your misses. Now, when you miss, you at least know why. That's probably the biggest problem when someone misses and they don't close that deal the first time they're there, and they don't know. I guess they just needed time to think about it. I guess they just wanted to talk it over. And that's not the reality. Once you can isolate that real objection, now I keep hearing the same thing over and over again. They keep telling me that the price was a lot higher than they thought it was going to be. So no, that tells me I need to work on my price conditioning. And now you know how to get better. But until you know what that actual objection is, then you're never going to know how to even train and improve yourself.
So in closing, for me anyway, my homework assignment for you this week, if I'm allowed to give you homework, would be get over that fear of rejection. They're not saying no to you. They're saying no to themselves. Make sure you're giving them a world-class presentation so that you feel like you do deserve and earn the right to close. Dig a little deeper. Find out what we want to think about it means. Learn some closes. Reach out to us yourself. We work with individual salespeople. Maybe your sales team's not ready or your company's not ready to bring us in to work with everybody. We'll work with you on an individual basis. But learn the skills of the trade. Learn how to do the things that you need to do to be successful. Closing should be comfortable. It should be fun. It should be the right thing to do. You're not, again, it's not what we do to people, it's what we do for people. And if the customer has a genuine problem and you have a wonderful solution and it's affordable, you owe it to the customer to close them. You're doing them a
Absolutely.
disservice if you don't. So,
100%.
yeah. What else we got going on, TJ?
Well, I was going to say this is a great introduction into the topic of closing, and it's a great starting point of getting your mind right, getting your mentality right about what closing is and how it should be done. But if you really want to take your closing to master championship level, I know of a place where you can do that, and that's at our first webinar, which is Friday, October 18th. We are hosting championship level closing, which is a full closing boot camp that's open to any and all. If it's just you as an individual, or your entire sales team, your whole company, for $299 for our early access ticket purchasers, you get access for you and everyone that you want to invite from your company. So that's where we'll be going over our championship caliber ideas that will help you close more deals. And that includes creating a roadmap to one call closing any customer, and our next level method of laying down price, how we sell financing, which that alone can improve your close rate by 5 to 10% if you just learn how to sell financing properly. And then discount packages that just create natural urgency when you deliver them. So this will be our top tier content, the best stuff that we put out there, and it's only $299, Friday, October 18th. We're really excited. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, and a couple ways that you can get in on this early special. First of all, you can just email us, phil@tonyhody.com, and we will get you moving in the right direction. Or you can go to tonyhody.com, and it's in the store, and you can go in there now and you can purchase your tickets. It's going to be great closing skills, great mindset skills. There's going to be plenty for everybody. Everybody will have takeaways. We'll have handouts that we will email you, closes that we're going to introduce to you. So a lot of what we feel made us successful when it comes to being closers, we're going to share with you that day. So mark that date on your calendar. Get in while it's at an introductory rate, and I promise you that you will walk away feeling like a champion. You'll have a champion mindset, and you'll be able to go out and perform at a higher level than you've ever performed at.
Yes, and of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Hiring Strategies, Builder Prime, and Engage. Wonderful sponsors. Happy to have them on board. And Phil?
Yep, go sell something, everybody.
And if you or your business is in need of training, recruiting, process development, or consulting, you can contact us here at Tony Hody Training and Consulting by visiting tonyhody.com. Click the Contact tab and enter your information for a free consultation to see how we can help you grow your business. Tony Hody Training and Consulting, teaching ordinary people how to do extraordinary things.